Hello everyone, this is the last video we're ever gonna post. We're done after this.
Sorry.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Would I ever give this up? No. But what is happening is this is the last Serial Killer Monthly of season 1. It has been 1 year and 7 months of us posting a serial killer every single month. I think we skipped a month once. There is some new fun things coming. It's gonna be fun, fresh, and exciting. Might be depressing, but that's fine. It's fine. Everything's a little bit depressing because this entire playlist has been depressing.
Life. Some of it was like
Rough.
just. I was telling Taylor, I was talking about how it's the last one, and then I was like, man, we did some crazy ones, and I was like, oh, we did. Joe Metheny, that guy.
The guy who did the barbecue pork, he would like ground up the victims and...
Yeah, I was telling him about that guy, and then I was like, man, Ed Gein. I was like, this fucking guy.
We've done a lot. But don't worry, do not worry. If this is your favorite thing that we post, it will be back. It will. Do I know when? Hell no. We will have a season 2. For that, we are going to let y'all decide who you want us to do next. Basically, season 2 is going to be a viewer's pick. This first season, it was literally, she made a list, I made a list, we went back and forth for almost 2 damn years. So now it's your turn. Tell y'all right now, this is gonna be a long one. If you have not seen the time, we're 3 minutes and 31 seconds in, we have not given you any bullshit yet.
Not a damn thing.
This is 17 pages, okay? We're gonna be sitting here for a while. You're gonna be sitting there for a while. So go get a snack. This isn't too gruesome. It's not too violent. Get some popcorn, get some ice cream, sit down, shut the fuck up, and listen.
Yeah, this was my pick. Didn't know it was gonna be extra long, but you know, we'll go out with a bang.
You really did save the best for last. This is so interesting.
I just felt like this had to be in our first season.
Yes.
I also didn't know we were gonna have another season when we started this, but I just thought that if we were gonna do serial killers, he had to be one of them.
This was actually our first series of anything that we started on the channel after you know who, if you've been here for that long, pulled all of his crap. Because I was like, man, I really need to get back into YouTube. And I was like, hey, do you want to do a series with me? Like, let's pick something that we both like. And I don't know who said it, but this came to be.
Yeah, if you followed after we started this series, I was not on the channel that much before we started doing this. And then after we started the Serial Killer Monthly, I started coming in on other videos. Because there's a few videos that I was in back in the old days. But I wasn't like constantly in videos. My shoulder just about went out of socket.
But without further ado, this is H.H. Holmes. H.H. Holmes was born on May 16th, 1861 in Gilmanton, New Hampshire. His real name is not H.H. Holmes, for the record. His real name is Herman Webster Mudgett. He was the third child to Levi Horton Mudgett and Theodate Page Price.
Also, what a strange name. I was talking about this for like 5 minutes earlier. I've never heard the name Theodate before. It looks like Theodore, but instead of an R at the end, there's a T.
It doesn't make it sound any more feminine. They were both descendants from the early English settlers. He attended Phillips Exeter Academy when he was a kid, like elementary. He graduated from Gilmanton Academy with honors when he was only 16 years old. This was also in like the 1800s, so I don't know if they've changed the age of when you graduated, but I'm assuming that if you were graduating from high school at age 16, you were smart as hell.
It seems like, just an observation, the serial killers that, at least that we have covered, are either, I don't know why I said it like that, like a pirate, arr, arr, arr. They're either exceptionally intelligent, like off the charts intelligent, or they're so stupid.
They're off the charts stupid.
Like, no education.
There's no in between.
I don't understand.
And the majority of them in this season have been extremely intelligent. They just do not have common sense.
Correct.
His parents were both devout Methodists. but I don't know if he carried any of that religion with him or if he even really cared. His father's side of the family were farmers, and sometimes his father worked as a farmer, a trader, and a house painter. It is also said his father was a heavy drinker who liked to abuse his family, mentally and physically. Holmes was also bullied by his classmates because of how intelligent he was. One time, he was forced to stand in front of a human skeleton and put the skeleton's hands on his face in an attempt to scare him. He was terrified, but later he realized his experience was intriguing and said it helped him overcome his fears. He then developed an obsession with death because of that experience, and he started to dissect animals. What? So whoever did that to him, whoever made him do that with the skeleton is the reason for this. I am blaming that person. Shame on you. You're probably dead. Well, if you're not dead, there's a problem.
There's a real problem since this guy was born in 1861.
There's a big problem.
What is it with the small animal dissections?
They literally say that serial killers always start out with killing animals and like dissecting them.
It's so
And then they move on to humans as they get older.
It's a strange... Knock it off.
And now Carly is going to get into the marriages. I added that in after this, but these marriages occur all throughout the rest of the story of him, but I just wanted to add it all into one bullet point because this man's fucked up.
On July 4th, 1878, Holmes married Clara Lovering in Alton, New Hampshire. Together they had one son, Robert Lovering Mudgett. He was born February 3rd, 1880, and he died November 3rd, 1956. Housemates say Holmes was physically violent with Clara. In 1884, she moved back to New Hampshire and had little contact with him after that. In late 1886, he married 24-year-old Myrta Belknap in Minneapolis, Minnesota. He was still legally married to Clara. I don't know. I was not expecting that. I was gonna say, I don't know what the rules were back then. Like, I don't know if you could be legally married to more than one person.
No, you could not. Unless you were a Mormon. Even then, I don't think it was legal.
Fucking Mormons. To be fair, my whole one side of my family is all Mormon. Well, not all of them. They live in Utah. Utah's a strange place. If you're from Utah,
good luck.
I still like you, but what the hell's going on out there? A few weeks after marrying Myrta, he filed for divorce from Clara, claiming infidelity on her part. His claims could not be proven, so it went nowhere. Which is so weird that they won't just give you a divorce.
Yeah, like, why do you have to have a reason? Like, what if you just don't like the person anymore?
I don't want to do this anymore. Can I have a divorce?
No.
The divorce was never finalized, and it was dismissed on June 4th, 1891. With Myrta, Holmes had one daughter, Lucy Theodate Holmes, in Chicago. On January 17th, 1894, he married Georgiana Yoke in Denver, Colorado. This guy is just everywhere in the United States, apparently. He's fucking New Hampshire, Minnesota.
We're gonna add more states
Colorado. Soon. He was still married to both Clara and Myrta.
So he had 3 wives at the same time.
When he married Georgiana.
In 1879, he enrolled at the University of Vermont for a year. So now he ends up in Vermont. In 1882, he transferred to the University of Michigan's Department of Medicine and Surgery, going to Michigan. In June of 1884, he graduated, but he wasn't at the top of his class. His performance in school was actually called mediocre. While in college there, he worked in the anatomy lab under Professor William James Herdman, the chief anatomy instructor. It was said the two would engage in facilitating grave robbing to supply medical cadavers. It was really messed up.
Grody.
It's kind of what Ed Gein did when he went to, he would go to the cemeteries to make that skin suit so he could crawl into it and be his mom.
God, I'll never get over the fucking skin suit or the nipple belt.
When he wanted to dance in the moon with his mom.
He wanted to dress up as his mom in a suit of skin. This is not who we're talking about.
No.
But in a suit of skin. Made from women.
And he would dance in the moonlight.
He would pretend to be his mom in a skin suit that he made.
He would find pictures in Go watch this video if you have not heard of this.
Ed Gein.
Ed Gein. It's in the playlist, I promise. but he would find obituaries of people that looked like his mom after his mom died and be like, I'm gonna go to that person and I'm going to take the body and I'm going to scalpel the skin off and I'm gonna sew it together. Like, he would only pick women that looked like his mom because he wanted to be his mom.
He also made a lamp out of people's faces. Like, the lampshade was just a bunch of faces all
And
the
the
way around.
cereal bowls were made of skulls.
That guy was crazy. That was
Yeah.
one of the guys that was just so dumb. Like, he was not one of the overly intelligent people.
Go watch it.
That's
Go
not what
watch
we're
it.
talking about. But
We
it was-
digress. Years later, when Holmes was suspected of murder, he admitted to using cadavers to defraud life insurance companies several times in college.
In August of 1886, Holmes moved to Chicago. Here, he's new place again. This is when he started using the pseudonym H.H. Holmes. His name was Herman. Soon after he got there, he came to a drugstore at the northwest corner of South Wallace Avenue and West 63rd Street, in the Inglewood section of Chicago. The owner of the store was Elizabeth Holton and gave Holmes a job. He was a hard-working employee and eventually ended up buying the store. You just go to Chicago and buy a store. Several accounts say Holmes killed Holton, but official accounts say that he did not. I don't know, 50-50. He purchased an empty lot across the street and began construction in 1887 for a 2-story mixed-use building with apartments on the second floor and retail space with a drugstore on the first floor. Seems like an odd thing to just do out of nowhere, but you know. In 1888, when Holmes declined to pay the architects or the steel company, Aetna Iron and Steel, they took him to court, as they should.
This is why you pay people you hire. Even in the 1800s are coming after your ass.
For real life. In 1892, he added a 3rd floor and told investors and suppliers that he would be using it as a hotel during the World's Columbian Exposition. Some say Holmes built the hotel to lure tourists in so he could kill them and sell their skeletons to nearby medical schools. He did have a history of selling stolen cadavers to medical schools, but Holmes acquired the skeletons through grave robbing, not murder.
So the people he did murder, he did not sell. That's prostitution. Is it still prostitution when you're dead?
No, I don't think it's prostitution if you sell dead people. But
what if you sell them for the purpose of somebody committing necrophilia?
I think that's just being a dirty dog.
It's a serious question though.
It's not fucking, I almost said the wrong word. It's not prostitution if you're selling people that you killed. Please don't do that. Please. Thank you.
You just don't kill people.
Do not try to pimp people out that are no longer breathing. It's not funny. I'm so serious. Don't do that. There isn't any evidence that he murdered tourists of the exhibition on the premises. The yellow press labeled the building as Holmes Murder Castle, saying the building contained secret torture chambers, plural, trapdoors, gas chambers, and a basement crematorium. None of those claims were true.
They were just gossip.
Some other accounts stated that the hotel was made up of over 100 rooms and laid out like a maze, with doors opening into brick walls, windowless rooms, and dead-end staircases.
The way they were describing it makes it sound like the Winchester House. It was not the Winchester House.
The 3rd floor was actually moderately sized and incomplete because of Holmes' fight with the builders. Because you gotta pay them. It did have some hidden rooms, but they were used for hiding furniture Holmes bought on credit and didn't want to pay for. What is the point of getting furniture and not paying for it and having to hide it?
Yeah, then you can't use it.
Shortly after his arrest, his hotel was gutted by a fire started by an unknown arsonist. It was largely rebuilt and used as a post office until 1938. He also owned a 1-story factory which he claimed was supposed to be used for glass bending. I don't know what that is. It is not known if the factory furnace was ever used for this purpose. It is alleged to have been used to destroy incriminating evidence of his crimes. So he's just throwing his furniture in there that he stole from Rent-A-Center. I don't understand.
Did they have a Rent-A-Center back then? Next, we're going to get into the presumed murders. So this is going to be a little bit different than other videos.
Allegedly.
These are to believe they are true because it's likely, but not 100% certain. There's not enough evidence to prove it was him.
Allegedly.
it was probably him. In 1880, before Holmes arrived in Chicago, is when his presumed first murders were committed. He was still using his real name at the time. He was still Herman. They were around the Chattanooga area near Hickson, Tennessee. Allegedly, he murdered 56-year-old train conductor William C. Berman. It is reported that Holmes stole his identity while running from a series of murders that took place in the North Georgia area near Dalton.
Julia Smith was the wife of Dr. Lawrence Isserlis, Ned Connor, so they called him Ned. She was also Holmes' 31-year-old mistress. Connor had moved into Holmes' building and started working at his pharmacy's jewelry counter. When Connor found out about his wife's affair with Holmes, he quit his job and moved away, leaving behind his wife and their 5-year-old daughter, Pearl Connor. Julia got custody of Pearl and stayed at the hotel and continued her relationship with Holmes.
So I'm pretty sure at this point he has like 3 wives and a mistress.
Or float your boat, I guess. On Christmas Eve of 1891, Julia and Pearl both disappeared. Holmes first claimed to acquaintances that Julia had unexpectedly left to visit her dying sister, but he changed his story and said that she had fled to her former husband. Then, later he claimed that Julia had actually died during an abortion, which wasn't uncommon back then.
No.
Even with his medical background, he was unlikely to be experienced in performing abortions, and the mortality rate from the procedures was high. I guess if I kept reading, I would have just told you that instead of telling you beforehand.
Well,
he then claimed to have poisoned Pearl, which was to hide the circumstances of her mother's death. How is killing the 5-year-old gonna make the situation better? I also just kicked the stand, and everything's fine.
the tripod.
The tripod. A partial skeleton, possibly of a child around Pearl's age, was found while excavating Holmes' cellar. Pearl's father was a key witness at Holmes' trial in Chicago.
In May of 1892, 23-year-old Emmeline Sigrand started working in Holmes's building and worked there for 6 months. Holmes reportedly hired her as a secretary because of her connection to a doctor who peddled a vaccine that allegedly cured alcoholism.
If you say so.
The people who saw Sigrand in the weeks before she disappeared noticed she appeared to have lost interest in Holmes and their relationship. She was last seen in December of 1892. Her parents were told that she had ran away to marry a man named Robert Phelps. Who's this man? Don't know. Authorities hypothesized that she had gotten pregnant by Holmes and was possibly another victim of a failed abortion that he tried to cover up. So I'm wondering if he killed a bunch of women and... no. I'm wondering if he impregnated a bunch of women and then killed them, or like tried to perform abortions on them and killed them because he was like trying to master his craft.
I'm also wondering why he felt the need to perform abortions on... what? Like, I understand that you slept with these women, you got pregnant, and maybe you didn't want them to be pregnant. But also, you could have just been like, too bad. Like,
I don't know, maybe he wanted to learn how to do abortions, and he was like, I need people to practice on. So he would impregnate them, and then be like, hey, you're pregnant, we're gonna do an abortion. Here you go. And then they died.
Because this wasn't like a case of, oh no, I can't let my wife find out that I got somebody pregnant. Like, he's just out here spreading his seed across the country. And then he's
spreading his seed across the country. God bless America. Her empty luggage was sent back to her mother in Anderson, Indiana. Her skeleton was found by the police at the home of a Chicago physician with the help of M.G. Chappell, who admitted having articulated 3 skeletons for H.H. Holmes.
In early 1893, 24-year-old Wilhelmina Williams, what a name, moved to Chicago.
I spelled Williams wrong.
Williams. She was a one-time actress, and Holmes claimed to have met her in an employment office. It was actually believed that they had met in Boston several years earlier while he was going by the name Harry Gordon. Harry Gordon. Oh, that's the dumbest name I've ever heard in my life. He offered her a job at the hotel as his personal stenographer, which is a shorthand writer, and she accepted. He persuaded her to transfer the deed to her property in Fort Worth, Texas to a man named Alexander Bond, which was an alias of Holmes. It's better than Harry Gordon. In April 1893, Williams transferred the deed and Holmes served as a notary.
Okay, we don't know if we're saying this name right, so we're gonna say Peitzel or Pitzel. Same guy, if you hear it interchanged. We don't even know if we're saying it right.
Yeah, the only pronunciation we could find was a French woman saying it, and she was all like fancy.
Pitzel.
She said Pitzel.
Yeah, Pitzel pepperoni.
That's Italian.
I mean,
it was
Pitzel.
racist and still wrong.
Oui, I dropped my croissant.
Holmes then signed the deed over to Pitzel, giving him the alias Benton T. Lyman. In the next months, Holmes and Williams presented themselves as husband and wife. They rented an apartment in Chicago's Lincoln Park. So what I didn't say in the beginning, when I said Wilhelmina, her nickname is Minnie. Minnie's younger sister, 18-year-old Anna Nanny Williams, came to visit, so they call her Nanny. On July 5th, 1893, she wrote to her aunt that she planned to accompany her brother Harry to Europe. Brother Harry's even more creepy. At the end of the letter, she signed off with, "Brother Harry says you need never trouble any more about me, financially or otherwise. He and sister will see to me. I hope our hard days are over." Minnie and Nanny were never seen alive after that. Holmes continued to use Minnie's name in future scams.
Now we're going to move to the suspected murders. So these were murders that he most likely did commit, that the police were on his ass, but
Lack of evidence.
yes, but he probably did do these too. On April 17th, 1891, John de Bruel died of apoplexy. He was a 68-year-old creditor of Holmes, and he died in the drugstore. A witness said John collapsed and died shortly after Holmes poured a black liquid down his throat. Foul play was not suspected. In 1895, they found out that John's life had been insured, and Holmes had profited from his death.
In 1891, Emily Van Tassel disappeared after working at the drugstore. In Holmes' confession, he mentioned her name. Tassel's mother believed she was a possible victim, and her name was cited in a list of suspected victims.
In 1892, Dr. Rustler went missing, and he had an office in the castle, is what they called his building. Holmes mentioned killing him in his confession.
Kitty Kelly went missing in 1892 and was a stenographer for Holmes. He had a lot of stenographers.
Because he killed them. He had to replace them once he killed them.
Yeah, that's funny.
In 1893, John Davis went to visit the World's Fair and vanished. He was from Greenville, Pennsylvania. In 1920, he was declared legally dead. How do you just declare someone legally dead?
They said, man,
You did.
he gone. In November of 1893, Harry Walker of Greensburg, Indiana went missing. Allegedly, he had insured his life to Holmes for $20,000 and wrote to his friends that he was working for Holmes in Chicago.
Remember, $20,000 back then is equivalent to almost $700,000 today. His scams that he's doing is making him a lot of money.
It doesn't mean it's a good idea.
No, don't do it. Insurance companies are a lot more.
They'll also catch your ass this time in this day and age, and then you'll just be screwed. So
You'll be in jail. In June 1894, Holmes and Pitzel took George Thomas to a Mississippi swamp on the Tombigbee River. There they killed him and disposed of the body. Holmes confessed to this murder to his second wife.
Why are you telling your wife you killed people? In July of 1894, Milford Cole from Baltimore, Maryland disappeared after getting a telegram from Holmes to come to Chicago. But it's just as suspected.
Lucy Burbank was an additional possible victim because her bank book was found with human hair in a chimney flue at the castle in 1895. Holmes allegedly claimed to have killed 2 people in Lake County, Illinois in the 1890s. It was confirmed years later when the remains of an unknown man and an unknown woman were found on a farm in 1919. This was 23 years after he died, after Holmes died.
Holmes met 38-year-old Benjamin Freeland Pitzel while he was working in the Chemical Bank building on Dearborn Street. Pitzel was a carpenter with a criminal past. Most of them are. Holmes used Pitzel as his right-hand man for several criminal schemes. I wonder if he was stupid. No, because a lot of smart people will have like somebody that'll just do anything for them, but they're usually really stupid. Insurance companies started coming after him, trying to prosecute him for arson, so he left Chicago in July of 1894. He went to Fort Worth, where the property he inherited from the Williams sisters was. He started to build an incomplete building, and he didn't pay the suppliers or contractors. Everyone gasped in unison, because who would do such a thing?
In July of 1894, Holmes was arrested and jailed briefly for the first time. He was charged with selling mortgaged goods in St. Louis, Missouri. He was bailed out pretty quickly.
There you go, stealing from Rena Center again.
While in jail, he had a conversation with Marion Hedgepeth, a convicted outlaw who was serving a 25-year sentence. Holmes had made a plan to swindle an insurance company out of $10,000 by taking out a policy on himself, then faking his own death.
I'm dead. I'm alive again. I'm dead. I'm looking.
Holmes promised Hedgepeth $500 if he could give him the name of a lawyer who could be trusted. Holmes went to a young St. Louis attorney named Jephthah Howe. Howe thought his plan was brilliant, and agreed to play the part. His plan to fake his own death failed when the insurance company got suspicious and refused to pay. Holmes then made a similar plan with Pitzel.
Pitzel agreed to fake his own death so that his wife could collect on a $10,000 life insurance policy. He would then split it with Holmes and Howe. The scheme was going to take place in Philadelphia and called for Pitzel to set himself up as an inventor under the name B.F. Perry. Do better. And then be killed and disfigured in a lab explosion. Holmes was going to find a good cadaver that would fit the part of Pitzel.
So he's going to go and find a
dead person to replace Pitzel so he doesn't actually have to die.
Yeah.
On September 4th, 1894, instead of finding a cadaver, Holmes killed Pitzel by knocking him unconscious with chloroform and then setting his body on fire with benzene. So
that answers your question. Yeah, Pitzel was stupid.
In his confession, Holmes implied Pitzel was still alive after he used the chloroform on him before he set him on fire. Okay. Forensic evidence showed that chloroform had been administered after Pitzel's death, not before like he claimed. Why would you chloroform a dead person? I don't know.
So basically he set Pitzel on fire alive.
And then maybe he chloroformed him to try to say that he chloroformed him before he died. It was believed Holmes did that to stage a suicide.
So he's trying to make it look like Pitzel offed himself.
He didn't do a good job.
Nope.
Holmes collected the insurance payout of Pitzel's actual corpse. After then, he went to Pitzel's wife, Carrie Alice Canning, to manipulate her into allowing 3 of her 5 children to be placed into his custody. What on God's green earth? Why would you ever let somebody do that?
For real. And these days, you can't do that. Like,
you can't just take somebody's kids.
No.
13-year-old Alice Pitzel, 9-year-old Nellie Pitzel, and 7-year-old Howard Robert Pitzel.
But why did he only want 3 and not 5? Is 5 kids too many for him? Or maybe the other 2 were like already older than 13 and...
Or they were real little.
Yeah.
Holmes and the 3 children traveled throughout the northeastern United States and into Canada. He simultaneously escorted Carrie along a parallel route by lying to her.
So while they're on these travels, he's telling Carrie to like go
Carrie
a different...
is the kids' mom, in case
yeah.
you're confused.
He's telling her to go like a different route, but they're like parallel to each other.
During this time, he was staying at another location with his second wife, and she was unaware of the whole situation. Where are the children?
I want to know where the other 2 are. When they would stop in cities, she would literally only be a few blocks away, and she didn't even know it, and his wife didn't know it.
Strange. On October 25th, 1894, Holmes murdered Alice and Nellie by forcing them into a large trunk and locking them inside. What is wrong with this man? He drilled a hole in the lid of the trunk and put one end of a hose through the hole, attaching the other end to a gas line to asphyxiate the girls.
That's not
So
nice.
why did you need the children? I don't understand. He took their nude bodies and buried them in the cellar of his rental house at 16 St. Vincent Street in Toronto.
Frank Geyer was a Philadelphia Police Department detective. He was assigned to investigate Holmes and to find the 3 missing children. In June of 1894, Geyer began tracing Holmes's steps. He found the decomposed bodies of the 2 girls in the cellar of the Toronto home. He wrote, "The deeper we dug, the more horrible the odor became, and when we reached the depth of 3 feet, we discovered what appeared to be the bone of the forearm of a human being." Geyer also discovered unsent letters written by the Pitzel children that Holmes had kept. This led to further investigations of Holmes's Chicago property. It led Geyer to Indianapolis, where Holmes had rented a home in the Irvington neighborhood. Holmes reportedly visited a local pharmacy to purchase the drugs which he had used to kill Howard Pitzel on October 10, 1894, and a repair shop to sharpen the knives he used to chop up the body before he burned it, and the boy's teeth and bones were discovered in the Holmes chimney.
On November 17, 1894, Holmes was arrested in Boston, finally ending the murder spree. He was tracked there from Philadelphia by the Pinkerton National Detective Agency. He had an outstanding warrant for horse theft? He had an outstanding warrant for horse theft in Texas. I've never heard that in my life, and I almost died the first time I read it. Authorities had become more suspicious at this point. Holmes appeared to be preparing to flee the country with his 3rd wife. Lost count of the wives.
You were already in Canada. Why didn't you just stay there?
In July of 1895, after the discovery of Alice and Nellie's bodies, the Chicago police and reporters started investigating Holmes' building in Englewood. Many claims were made, but no evidence was found that could have convicted Holmes in Chicago. All the evidence was circumstantial. A piece of bone, possibly from Julia Connor, the remains of a child, possibly Pearl Connor, a burned gold watch chain and burned dress buttons, apparently belonging to Minnie Williams, a tuft of human female hair found in the chimney flue. Why was everything in the chimney flue all the time? Holmes would be tried for the murder of Pitzel in Philadelphia because it was the clearest for murder.
In October of 1895, Holmes was put on trial for the murder of Benjamin Pitzel. He was found guilty and sentenced to death. It was also apparent that Holmes had killed the 3 children. After his conviction, he confessed to 27 murders in Chicago, Indianapolis, Toronto, and 6 attempted murders. He was paid $7,500 by the Hearst newspapers in exchange for his confession.
On May 7, 1896, Holmes was hanged at the Moyamensing prison for the murder of Pitzel. Until the moment of his death, he was calm and amiable, showing few signs of fear, anxiety, or depression. He asked for his coffin to be contained in concrete and buried 10 feet deep. He was concerned that grave robbers would steal his body and use it for dissection. Who would steal a grave body? A grave body?
A grave body?
Who would grave rob?
Yeah.
Holmes.
Hmm?
When he was hanged, his neck did not break. Instead, he was strangled to death slowly, twitching for over 15 minutes before being pronounced dead. His body was interred in an unmarked grave at the Holy Cross Cemetery, a Catholic cemetery in the Philadelphia suburb of Yeadon, Pennsylvania. I wonder if he, was Catholic, or if they just decided to throw him in there.
I don't know.
Because his parents were Methodist.
Well, wouldn't it go to one of his wives? Wouldn't it be one of her problems?
On March 7th, 1914, the Chicago Tribune reported that with the death of Patrick Quinlan, nobody would ever find out the mysteries of Holmes. Quinlan had committed suicide by taking strychnine. I don't know if I'm saying that right, I apologize. His body was found in his bedroom. A note that was found said, "I couldn't sleep," so he just decided to die instead, I guess, I don't know. It was reported by his relatives that he had been haunted for several months and was suffering from hallucinations.
So, I'm wondering if Holmes's ghost went back there and started haunting him.
Yeah, it's possible. In 2017, there were allegations that Holmes had escaped execution. His body was exhumed for testing by Janet Monge of the University of Pennsylvania Museum of Archaeology and Anthropology. They found that since his coffin was contained in concrete, his body did not decompose normally. His clothes were almost perfectly preserved, and his mustache was found to be intact. That is so creepy. That is so creepy. And also, why did they give him his dying wish? He wanted to be preserved in concrete, like obviously in his coffin. Why did they do that for him? I'd be like, no.
Yeah. Like,
screw off.
What do you deserve? Nothing. Wow, that was karma. You deserve nothing. Okay, I'm taking your oxygen away.
The intact mustache just really creeps me the fuck out. His teeth identified that it was him, so he was executed. And then he was reburied, so that's just...
And with that, we come to the end of our last Serial Killer Monthly. We've been sitting here for over 2 hours.
Let's see, it's oh yeah, it's 2:02. We started at 12.
Yep.
Everything's fine.
I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you want to see other Serial Killer Monthlies, while we were on this break, we have an entire playlist. There's like over 10 in there, so you can go and watch them.
There's even a couple female serial killers in there.
We even have a serial rapist in there. That
we haven't having a serial rapist.
Can't tell we've been sitting here for way too long. Way too long. And with that being said, go like this video, comment on this video what you want to see us do next. Dude, I'm over this. I'm done.
What to see us do next?
Dude, I'm done. You know what? Sayonara, signing off.
Love ya.
Goodbye.